This is episode number 907 of the InnerFight podcast. This week, in 5-Minute Mondays, I bring you boundaries. Are you suffering in one area or the other where somehow you feel your life is being invaded by other people, or maybe even, which is an increasingly big issue, by social media? What boundaries are you setting? What are boundaries and how do we set them? Hopefully, in the next 5 minutes, I will help you to have some clarity or debunk a little bit on what you can do here. We used to actually have very clear boundaries in our life, I believe. Most jobs used to start at 9 a.m., finish at 5 p.m. People would power down their desktops. You're very senior or very posh if you had a laptop. You'd power it down and that would be it for the end of the day. You would have a boundary. Your life would be operating in a work environment between 9 to 5 days a week. Then on the weekend, you would go out and you would do your weekend things. You would operate within that boundary. I also remember we used to have phone boundaries where at certain times of the day, it was considered too late or even maybe too early to call someone. We operated within a number of different boundaries. And if you're maybe a little bit too young or you can't cast your mind back, even if you're a little bit older, that's actually how we used to operate. And that's how we perhaps were not so rushed, busy, distracted, and all of those things leading to an increased sense of anxiety. What I would first up encourage you to do is reflect a little bit on the various areas of your life and where you have boundaries. Do you have boundaries when it comes to work? Does your work start immediately when you wake up and continue throughout the day until you go to bed? If it does, what is the boundary there? How do you react to certain phone calls, messages, emails, and how do you let them into your life? Lots of people used to run around with 2 mobile phones, one work phone and one personal phone. It's not so common these days. However, what that enabled us to do was to create a boundary within the mobile phone communication environment, if you like. So think about the various aspects of your life and what your boundaries maybe are, and maybe think about what you would like them to be. For both of those things, think about the impact of those boundaries that you either have or you don't have. That's super important. Some people might not have any work boundaries and might not even be thinking about the potential impact stress-wise or to relationships or other silos of your life that actually not having those boundaries is having on you. So what are your boundaries? What do they feel like? And what's the implications of them is point number 1. Point number 2, which I think we're getting increasingly bad at, is communicating the boundaries that you've set for yourself. Be confident to tell people that you operate within a certain number of hours. Be confident to tell people that you reply to messages within a certain time frame. But then if you commit that time frame, it's probably a good idea to actually follow it. And that's something that maybe we don't see too much. It's important the way that you obviously communicate your boundaries to those close to you, to professional relationships, or to those that you want to bring closer to you as well. Some people might need a little bit of a softer approach, whilst others are very happy because they understand boundaries, are very happy to be told very bluntly. If someone told me bluntly, these are my boundaries, I'd be super happy. Whereas other people probably need a little bit more of a sugarcoating. Once you've set some boundaries based on your reflection and actually how you want your life to feel and how you want your life to look and the amount of stress that you're willing to bring into your life, then it's probably quite a good idea to follow your rules. There's a lot of people that say they want to achieve certain things and therefore need to carry out certain behaviors, but then we find out that they're actually not carrying out those certain behaviors. So if you say to yourself and you understand that actually closing your workday at 6 p.m. and the boundary that you want to put in place is not replying to any emails, phone calls, or messages after 6 p.m., it's a pretty good idea to follow it. How do you know if you're following it? One exercise that I use often, and I really encourage people, we've spoken about it on the show before as well, is actually reflect on what you've done on a weekly, monthly basis. There are certain apps that can do that and give you that information on your phone. Screen time pops up on most people's phone every Monday morning and gets probably just absolutely discarded straight away because people don't really want to know the truth. But if you're going to set a plan in place and you're going to set these boundaries, then it's good to check in on what you're doing to meet them, really. And then I think a lot of people are a little bit worried to set boundaries because they think it's like a tattoo and it'll last forever. There are certain times of your life, certain periods of your life that you'll maybe need to change your boundaries. Same we do with training. There's certain times of periodization. There'll be certain times in a training program that we deliver that has a higher volume of training opposed to a time that will have lower volume of training. And it might be that your work boundaries need to be stretched during an incredibly busy time at work, a good time for your career where you really need to go all in at work. And therefore, you might just stretch things out or you might change your approach. It's not always set in stone, but if you're not reviewing and reflecting often and understanding the impact that boundaries have in your life, then you're probably a little bit more stressed out and you're probably a little bit more distracted than you could be. Hopefully that's helpful. I'd be interested to know what boundaries you have in your life and whether you stick to them, change them often, review them, and tell people about them. Drop me an email, winning@innerfight.com. I would love to hear from you. Thanks a lot for listening. I'll catch you next time.